Welcome to the Nailed It Wall.
Welcome to episode 66 of the Nailed It Wall. On this week, we're going to talk about a glider project, the morning announcements, and a crazy twist of events that have taken place in the life of Mr. Lane, the STEM guy. I'm Mr. Lane, the STEM guy.
And I'm Miss Scofield.
All right, partner. You told me you wanted me to give my nailed it, failed it first. Is that correct?
This is correct.
We're mixing it up on episode 66. I don't think this has ever happened before in the history of our podcast, which I'm excited for. It may have. Well, my son, maybe the smartest person I know, love him to death. He's a fifth grader, 10 years old, going on 11. These kids nowadays, they don't watch sports. They get their highlights from TikTok and YouTube shorts. And I'm like, oh, the game's on. Come in. I might be lucky to get him to watch the final 2 minutes of a game. They don't play their friends in games, playing Madden, MLB The Show, or 2K. They just build dynasties and that go on 20 years. And they're basically little GMs. And my son, he has amazing knowledge of past and present players, and we're in a fantasy football league. How's your team doing?
Tough to say.
Tough to say. Okay. All right. First week, me and my son are matched up against each other, and I'm like, oh, I'm talking so much trash. I'm like, I'm going to wipe the floor with you. I'm going to demolish you just to take all of your little factoids in your head and not sport watching self, and I'm just going to annihilate you.
Someone's competitive.
Talking a lot of trash all week. And he gave me the beat down of a lifetime that I never saw coming. I couldn't believe it happened. He almost doubled me up. I mean, it was like percentage points from a complete double up. It was like 120 to 61. And I didn't have any injuries. I didn't play the wrong people. My players just did not show up in week one, and I don't know if I was embarrassed or I was more proud. And I think I leaned towards the more proud that he got his first win against me, and he just, week one, just took it to me. But week two, I've bounced back 1-1 in our fantasy league, so I'm feeling pretty good about that, and been having a lot of fun. You're getting in on the fantasy football. You've been talking to some of your friends about fantasy football. So it's now for those that you don't know what fantasy football is, it's, you can do fantasy for anything. You draft certain players, you have to have your team, you get injuries, you can trade, you can pick up people on waiver wires, and you get a whole draft that goes through there, and you want to have the best team, and you get certain points for touchdowns, yards, receptions, all that stuff. So if you're not a fantasy fan, so fantasy football just takes over your life, and so my failed it was losing to my son, but also it was a nailed it at the same time. I could not be more proud, but I'll get him later in the season.
Well, I have to tell you, I am really glad I went second, because I was sitting here, I was listening to you, but then I just kept struggling. What do I want to, what do I want to do? What do I want to do? And as you were talking, I can't believe it even took me this long to come up with my nailed it, failed it. So we went to the grocery store the other day, right? Ran in to get something. And I received a text from our buddy Lincoln. And it was timely. It was just so crazy about timing. But his text was touching base and talking about how when he came in to visit me in my class and help me, seniors have to do like certain amount of hours. I think his was for hours, or his might have just been coming in to help. I don't even know. I don't even think his is for hours, just to touch base and help out in any way he could. But regardless, he texted and said that he was starting his own YouTube channel, and it was inspired by us getting back into the pod. And he gave I had told him I thought he would be amazing in a podcast. He just is very personable, and really, I just love to listen to him talk. So he decided that was not the platform he felt like he'd be most comfortable in. But he loves, I mean, we know that Lincoln loves tennis and women's tennis. I think that's what he went to. Didn't he go to Australia to?
Yeah, pre-COVID, he was at the Australian Open.
Yeah.
I think they were having the wildfires, either just starting at that point or I think they were going on during the Australian Open.
I was there. Yeah. So I remember that, and I know he's passionate about that. He is no slacker on the tennis court himself there. And
defending state champion. He's got to defend the title.
And so
he must protect this house.
Honestly, we were so proud hearing that this is something he's going to do. And so, shout out to you, Lincoln. And I'm just incredibly proud of what you're doing. And as we go through the pod, I'm going to pull up my phone and look what your YouTube channel is, Lincoln, so we can give it a plug here.
Give him that sub.
Yeah. And so for me to know that our
what is the YouTube channel called?
That's what I was saying. I was going to wait till there was
I was just trying to give a shout out.
Oh. So I'm so proud that not only does he listen to our pod, but that inspires him to want to put his voice out there on something that he's passionate about and that he followed through. And what we talk about all the time as educators is pick something that's relevant to you. Pick something that is your passion and put it out in the world. And the world needs more of that authenticity. That's you just being on fire about something. And so we're just really excited. And then, as if that wasn't a highlight enough, one of his best friends from when he was in school with us, I'm walking and there's Ella, who is just always going to be someone near and dear to me. And so seeing her and having that moment with her, and I got very emotional and just touched by that connection that's still there. And for her to know that I'm so excited to see her and so proud of her and that she's still my kid. And for her to, reciprocate that she was so excited to see me. It was just beautiful, honestly.
I mean, and you always talk about timing, and you as a teacher sometimes just don't know how much you need those moments, and you were just so blown away, caught up in that moment, and just overwhelmed with how those two moments happened at the same time. What you had to do to be there in the universe, and Lincoln was kind of like that final straw. I know when we were at I.C.C, we talked about, we're going to get back to the podcast. It's something we're passionate about. We love doing it. We love teaching kids, getting kids excited about podcasting. And we can't be up here preaching about having a podcast and not churning out episodes and doing all the things to call yourself a podcaster. And I love calling you my co-host, and I love saying we have a podcast. And Lincoln was one of those final people and be like, all right, we've got to pull ourselves together. And one of my biggest regrets was just, the last couple of years through COVID and just having this kind of time capsule of this timestamp of time where we were. I love going back and just reading the recaps of everything that has happened in those little moments. And you think of, there's a year or two gap of just no podcast, and we don't have that sitting down just sharing those moments like in real time there. So one of my biggest regrets, but also very thankful for Lincoln. So many people were encouraging us to get back to it, give it another shot, do it again, and nothing but every week I'm just so excited to get back to doing the pod, seeing your kids, how excited they are about the podcast.
Okay, I want to give Lincoln's YouTube channel a shout out. It's double.
I gotta give it a cheers,
Did it go?
It's going.
Oh, I can't hear it on my side. WTA Weekly.
Okay.
Women's Tennis. I don't know.
Association.
I would imagine it's association. Yeah. So go Lincoln.
And that's such a cool thing to have a niche. I like to say niche. You like to say niche. And he'll be so good with it, and he's been passionate about women's tennis since Coco Gauff has come on the scene, and talk about just a great inspiration for girls all over the world. And just seeing her post-game interview talking about struggles and, comparing her life to those working parents, single parents. So I think, talk about niche, and I know you challenged him. You're you're like first team to a million subs, and get Coco on the podcast there. So truly amazing. And we're going to segue into our morning announcements. But another thing I want to say about my little guy, he is my best buddy. He drives me crazy. But this morning on announcements are amazing. Students were going around asking about respect. And everyone's saying, my dad, my mom,
Who they
grandparents.
respect,
Yeah, who they respect. And I wasn't in the room for this. I was in a meeting. He was interviewed. And he said, Baylen Levine. Now, if you don't know Baylen Levine, he's a YouTuber. I mean, this is the world we live in, that these kids look up to social media YouTubers, and I put a little ouch thing on the announcements, and my class was all laughing. And one of your eighth graders, just a great moment. He's like, I knew he was going to say it. I knew he was going to say it. So it kind of made me laugh. And as you watch your own kids kind of go through this maturation process for weeks, I'm like, dude, your birthday's coming up. What's going to be the theme? He wanted to do Gorilla Tag, which is a VR game for a while, but not everyone plays Gorilla Tag or understands it. Then he told me he wanted a no theme birthday. Like, I couldn't do a special cake. And mind you, I was so excited that he does not want to do a birthday at KTR, like these little places that cost an arm and a leg. I'm like, we're doing it at the house. I'm like, it's going to be the best birthday ever. And then he's like, invitation, no theme, can't say anything. I'm like, so we're just basically saying it's his birthday. Come,
Dwight Schrute is throwing it. It is your
birthday period. And this is who he is. Like, he's an individual. He does his own thing, and he came around, and we're gonna do a Baylen Levine party. And shout out to some of your eighth graders that were giving me some inspo for games and things I could do to make this a fun, exciting birthday.
We'll keep you all posted.
Yeah. All right, and with that segue, shout out to our announcements crew.
Oh,
like,
my goodness.
Where do you want to get started talking about announcements?
I think when we talk about announcements, it is probably the proudest that we've ever been as far as the whole picture, because we talked, when we first kind of took the helm of announcements, it was two girls that had kind of been, pushed into this role. It all fell on their shoulders. People weren't really watching announcements much. There wasn't really much to communicate. It was pretty bare bones, and it was something the girls were so diligent and what's the word? Like, they showed up, right? They took that responsibility on, and they were doing that the best they could, but they needed help. So I look at that, and I look where we are today, and to see it be a community on our campus, a positive community where it's all about celebrations, and it's all about connectivity, and it's become something kids want to be on, want to be heard on, want to be seen on, and they now are connecting. So now we have our new hosts, and
I'm going to stop you there.
yeah,
We made, was it last year? Yeah, so I mean, the last couple of years was eighth graders only.
Eighth graders
In the
only.
years past, it's been sixth, seventh, eighth
Yeah.
graders. That was before we kind of took it over, and we just kind of had a modge podge of kiddos. But mostly your eighth graders have kind of like held it down. And I made the mistake one day of saying, applications are out. See Miss Scofield for announcements. And so many sixth graders and seventh graders just came storming through the door. And I was like, it's for eighth graders only. So, like, we're going to love this you in eighth grade, but continue there. So that was a fail on my part.
So this year was really quite challenging, because even at the end of that last year, we knew we had a lot of people, a lot of interest in this. And while I didn't know those seventh graders, incoming eighth graders, super well, I could tell based on what I did know about them, they were all contenders. So that makes our job difficult. And you held tight and held firm to the fact that you did not want more announcement crew than would be sectioned off into each day of the week. So every crew had to have a specific day assigned to them, and that was a hard number. And it wasn't a quarterly thing, it wasn't a semester thing, it was for the whole year. So it is their commitment, but then they secure that spot, which I see a lot of merit in doing that. But it was heartbreaking for me to have to make any cuts at all. And these kids, they made audition videos. They had to get teacher recommendations. They had to write an application up about what their strengths are.
The audition videos were amazing. We're
Yeah.
talking about 8th graders, like, putting themselves out there, but also knowing, like, you can put yourself out there, but you might get cut.
Well, and one thing I thought was really cool is we didn't give them a lot of guidance on the audition videos. We just said, show us your personality, do something, and make it memorable. And a lot of them brought in segments that we do. They did spoofs on it. One of the crew that got in, I can't remember which one, but they recreated the Friday song because we didn't have a copy of it, so they just recreated it. It was so cute. I love the vibe of the kids. I love their ownership. So already we had someone that was going to be gone for, I think, a doctor's appointment or something. And they came in ahead of time, 2 days, I think, before, and said, this is going to be a schedule conflict. And so then I was immediately just going to put in, because we have one alternate group. So anytime somebody's absent, we put in the alternates. And that way that group will get some show time there. But the girls came up with a solution. They came early before school, took their time, prepped, and then even after they did, then they went out and did interviews, came up with a segment. Like, it is blowing my mind what announcements is. And you and I have always been very proud of what we produce. And we like things, we like a lot of creativity. But these kids came in and they didn't need to reinvent everything. They're not trying to scrap everything. They're bringing stuff in addition. And it's just a beautiful growth process. And to see them take ownership and be so positive, and they just, I don't know. I mean, I know I'm talking a lot. You talk, because I could just go on and on about them.
Well, we have our Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday crew. We're still doing, we're still in there with them, and me and you had a little disagreement about that of just throwing them in on air. So we're going to go sit with them through September and make sure they got everything on there. But I mean, day one, they're coming with their own little bits there. We've never put so much, emphasis on you guys are the face. You guys are responsible for this. You guys are leading the charge. And I've just been blown away by, today I filmed with 2 girls and we forgot to turn on the mics on the table, whole thing. And mind you, they come in during their lunch. They give their lunch and their recess, and they're in there. They're willing to film, and, they're putting themselves out there. And some of them, might not be the most comfortable thing, but, they're growing. And each day has a very different style and opinion. And you had the feeling of, that you wanted to keep everyone for quarters. And I'm like, no, they got to be the face for the year, not just for the small amount of time. And you grow over the course of the year, and you think of how much me and you have grown in front of the camera, and even our podcast, and just from that repetition and the amount of practice that we've had, and so many nice things. Through the district, like around the country, people are like, we just love your announcements. They can't get over it. And even shout out to Steph Hoffpower, like during COVID, somebody said, we want the announcements to be like this. And there is video somewhere in the universe of the amazing Steph Hoffpower doing her own version of the SV announcements and kind of bringing that fun. And that's what we do. You say we're the hardest working tandem in show business. We produce 180 episodes a year, always on time. Not always, but sometimes we have a little uploading issues, but we cannot be more proud to paint a picture. K8, Miss Mayfield the other day said, it's the quietest my kids are throughout the day. I've even said, like, me and you said we want to get back to going out on the beat, interviewing students more about just little things like what's going on in the world. And it's the quietest, like when there's student interviews on or the hopes that they might be on there. The kid, my seventh grader, they're silent and they're great conversations. You talk to Mrs. McDonald and it brings a lot of happy. And we're so proud that there is no other school doing it the way we do. We pre-record, so we're able to green screen a lot of things that are relevant, whether it's vocabulary or national days or video highlights. And I mean, it is our baby, and it's just I cannot get over the interest and how many kids applied and how many that we could not take on announcements. And you are just you're betrothed to break the news to the kiddos.
Well, the other thing I wanted to say is when you were talking about that, when you said they're the face, that really is a great opportunity. There's a couple on campus, but it's one really empowering, teachable thing for our students to see us be selective about who we will allow represent us. It's like celebrities with companies that are going to sponsor them, right? So if we're saying we're going to put you on air, we're really taking that seriously. And we held them to a very high standard this year because our K-8 deserves that. And to have kids sit in that anchor chair, you're committing to those younger kids that you are going to be a positive and effective role model in their life. And that is so cool to see these kids step into that role. And, you know, I think that we hold a strong line on that, a hard line, and I'm glad we don't compromise on that. But you think about how many little kids watch these kids every day, all week, and how much they're taking in about every nuance these kids say and do. And these older kids just don't realize how much these little kids look up to them, and that's such a powerful and important responsibility.
Yeah, and shout out to Mr. Galetti because me and you were like, we love being in there with the kids, and he's like, it really should be student led and student run, and me and you are like we're like I'm not crying, we're like you're crying, and once we heard that we're like he's totally right, and like this is the group that is going to do things that like you know when you have that just one amazing season of a TV show that just sweeps all the awards, like I know we're just gonna look back and be like every day these kids brought it in some different way. I mean, they're bringing segments, they're out there doing interviews, like I mean Ryan was on that segment today, and I just loved like what a talking point that one little thing was today. And I mean, it brought me to tears of I've failed my son, but also it brought me to tears of happiness. And I had so many great moments with the students. And you think about the power of the announcements, and we've talked about this a lot, but you know, it is, we produce 180 episodes a year. I'm like, me and you, we should be on strike right now. We should be with the writers, you know. We should be in the is it the SAG? What's the Writers Guild?
Yeah, SAG.
SAG. We should be on strike, you know. Like no talk shows are happening, and it's scripted, but it's not scripted, and it's just every little story means so much to us. Like Mrs. Moore talking about her EL students, like how I say good morning, you know, that they're emulating that. Like that's like their understanding of a new language and how you say hello, and where they're doing that. And then last year we had a fifth grader and her sisters do this whole segment that they sent to their fifth grade teacher, and they did their whole whole routine of announcements and just the power. And so many people through the district are like, oh, we're getting announcements going. What to use, how to use it. And, we're always very honest. And we have some great equipment. We have a green screen room and just great kids that are just so proud.
Well, and I think the other part, it's the kids. So for us, it's multi-pronged as far as our levels of pride. The kids for sure are a huge part of it. But what is really remarkable is how much buy-in there has been from the teachers. There's a couple of people that are still not watching, which is kind of a bummer, only because it is communicating information to all school age kids at our campus. So, but, with PE, it's tough because there's no TV in there. That's, some difficulties that are hard to surmount. But we have teachers that start the day that way. So you talk about a routine that the whole school is part of. And because of that, there's all these mini domino conversations that happen. So today there was National Cheeseburger Day, and that sparked this whole controversy in Mrs. Bonham's class about who makes the best cheeseburger. And Mr. Skates was inspired by National Make Your Bed Day, the conversation that we had with Lauren, which then we brought back around when she said she now started to make her bed. And then Mr. Skates had actually told me there's a whole TED Talk, which he sent me, which we haven't had a chance to look at. So it's just...
Well, don't forget Mrs. Bonham. We had a motivational Monday with Kevin Hart. And she's like, I love that so much. I saw that in the some more.
Yeah.
And then she came back. She's like, nope, that wasn't in the some more.
Yeah,
That was on announcements. But then she wants to take that whole thing and turn that into her SEL lesson this week.
Yes, and actually, I don't remember if you were walking where I was, but Half Power said, another awesome motivational Monday today. I just love this. That other one was amazing. So the conversations and how many lives it is touching in so many different ways. You just don't know what people are taking away. Some people really love the talent. Some people really love the totes adorbs. Some people love the motivational, but everybody loves when kids talk on announcements. And that is just so cool. It's been nice for us to have the kids take on birthdays as well so that teachers feel celebrated. It's never an intention to slight.
You did a great birthday the other day for our friend, Mrs. Copenhaver.
Yeah.
Tell us about that birthday celebration.
Yeah. So when we know ahead of time that it's coming, life comes at us pretty fast. And so.
Fast and furious.
Yeah. So, sometimes we don't realize something's coming on so fast. So that's a fail on our part, but we're trying to do better with that this year. But Copenhaver, is a very dear friend of ours, and
she's been on the pod.
She has been on the pod. We just love her, and she teaches math, and so I thought, what would be really cool and she does all these songs with her kids to teach them concepts, and she's very, very energetic with this, and so I just thought I would be willing to bet that my 8th grade students still remember those songs. So we had the announcements crew go out and record kids, saying the chants that they still remembered. And it was the coolest thing. So not only did she feel celebrated on her birthday, but man, as a teacher, you would feel seen and really feel like you made an impact, because that's 3 years later. Those kids could belt it out right on the spot. And it was the coolest.
It really is. And this won't be the last time we celebrate our announcements or talk about them. It is a part of our routine and our school culture, what it means to us. We're going through this STEM accreditation, and that's like another thing where we just kind of showcase all the great things happening on our campus and celebrating student stories, teacher stories, and just moments just like life is as a TV show. This is just another season that we get to tell, and unlike kind of where we missed those gaps in COVID, we can go back and kind of look back and kind of say, what was the story? What were we painting that picture? And never before have we given so much paint and the brush to the students to really take this and run. And me and you are we're really just giving the bare bones and and they're going to fill it in, and I just know they're going to soar.
They're not even painting a picture. They're painting like a Sistine Chapel,
Their masterpiece.
Yeah, their masterpiece. And it's just, I'll tell you what, we sure are fortunate to be right on the sidelines getting to witness this, because we are 100% facilitators in this process, and they have just taken it and run.
I mean, we're going to leave it on that note, people. Check out our amazing students, our announcements. I mean, we could not be more proud. But you know what? We're proud of you. And as we always say, people, if you can be anything, be kind. Hey, you want to see how this life really plays out? The things we talk about, it's real life. We're not making this stuff up. You can follow me on Twitter or x.com. You can search up Mr. Lane, the STEM guy.
And me at a positive proton.
We're also on TikTok. Search up Christy Scofield. And don't forget, we are also, we like coffee. If you like this podcast, freelancers, we're on Buy Me a Coffee. Search up Mr. Lane, the STEM guy.